I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. It's the Wednesday show. And back by popular demand. He's been here several times recently, and he's back again today. I think it's because he really knows how to ask the good questions. I'm talking about none other than my man, Mr. Chris Shaffer. Yeah. Chris, I would be, well, I really hate having these conversations when the history hasn't happened yet. So this is prehistory, if that makes any sense. Okay? It is right now, as we record this, 5:15 on 11:15. The Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight has not happened yet. Probably won't happen for several hours. Now, what time does the broadcast start, Chris?
I think the fight's scheduled for 8.
I think, well, that's the undercard, right?
Now, I gotta say, I'm not a big fan of either of the Paul brothers or the WWE-ification of boxing. But I'll watch it, just to watch one of them.
I have thoughts, and so I want to talk about it for just a minute. So I'm guessing the undercards start at 8. Can you look at it? It's on Netflix.
I'm logging into my Netflix as we speak.
Because if the undercard starts at that time, we probably won't see Mike Tyson until 11 p.m., which is way past a man of his age's bedtime, I'm pretty sure.
For as much crap as we give to algorithms, I have to say, the Netflix algorithm, not so bad. They didn't even have it on my homepage because they know that I don't like Big Paul. So it says it starts at 8. So my assumption would be that's all the pre-fight stuff, the undercard stuff, all of that happiness.
Okay.
We'll see the actual fight somewhere around 10.
Or 11, whenever. Now, here's the deal. Why do I care? Right? Am I a fan of the sweet science? Yeah, as much as anyone else. I kind of quit watching years ago. When I used to like it when you knew who the guys were. When, Spinks was a name. Tyson was a name. Ali was a name. Frazier was a name. Right? Now you hear, this guy is the this champion or the that champion, and now we got people in cages and people doing this, that, and the other thing. At some point, I just threw my hands up and went, what's the NFL? What are they doing right now? Because they seem to just be doing one thing.
Would you say you threw in the towel, Vinny? Just to use the boxing terminology.
No, I meant to hit. Let's see, right there.
If you leave it out there, I have to do it. You should know that by now.
Yeah, I threw in the towel. I mean, look, when you're watching Rocky V because it seems more realistic than real boxing, that's when you lose it. Right?
Rocky?
Yeah, when Rocky's like now fighting on the street. I mean, look, probably the last, and people are going to go, yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? What about Oscar De La Hoya? Yeah, names we remember. Right?
Floyd Mayweather, yeah.
All the Sugar Rays, right? Mayweather. All the Rockies. How many folks, before there was Rocky Balboa, there was Rocky Graziano, Rocky Marciano. Rocky's a big fight name back in the Italian day of fighting. People don't realize that one time Jews were the best fighters in this country. Whoever has been the group that just got here would literally fight their way out of the impoverished part of the United States. And that's the history of boxing, right? Max Baer. Everyone knows his son, Max Baer Jr., who played Jethro. Max Baer killed a man in the ring, right? Same with Boom Boom Mancini, killed a man in the ring. These things used to happen. You would see dead people on television dying in real time. well, Boom Boom was, people would listen to that on, well, no, Boom Boom, but I'm talking about Rossiana and Max Baer. There was no television back then for some of those guys, right? The fact of the matter is that boxing has, in my opinion, lost its way. But now I'm interested again for several reasons. You know who Jake Paul is. You see, I know there's two Paul brothers.
Yeah.
Right, there's two. But you see, I don't even know the other Paul's name.
Logan, I think.
Okay. So Logan and Jake Paul. My understanding is that they started off as like guys that figured out how to get seen on the internet. Can you give me a brief history of these guys?
So they're from Ohio. I know that. I think, weren't they on the Disney Channel? I think that's how they got their start.
They were on television?
I think so. And then they converted that into a YouTube channel. I'm going to have to do some Google foo over here because I'm not entirely acquainted with yes, Bizarre-Vark. Let's see. Was that Disney or was that Nickelodeon? Disney Channel.
Okay, so what did they do? Like, what was their thing?
It was one of those mid-2000s Disney Channel show, like the weird sitcoms that Disney had on that gave us all of the, the current crop of people like Selena Gomez. I've never seen the show because it was a little after my time, but I know they both wrestled in high school. I don't know if Logan was on there, if that was just Jake. But then they started like a prank channel on YouTube, and they had a few different things going on YouTube. You probably heard their name, Vinnie, for the first time when they went to Japan and filmed an extremely distasteful video in that forest in Japan where people go to hang themselves, including someone hanging, if I remember correctly. And that kind of when they blew up into the mainstream awareness because people went, wait, you can put that on YouTube? And YouTube went, not so much, right? And now they're coming after keto, but that's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was essentially it. They both, kind of had some YouTube fame and then turned that into general online influence. I think Logan is in the WWE now, and Jake has started boxing.
So, all right. So my recollection, and this is where I learned of it, like I heard that a YouTube star fought a real fight at some point. Now, who was that? Do you even know?
Something. It would have been another YouTube person with his first few fights.
Yeah, and then but then I was told by people like my friend Corolla that, oh no, he's legit now. Like this guy has figured out, he's putting the time in.
Tyrone Woodley, Tommy. He lost to Tommy Fury, Nate Diaz. So here's the thing. I'm not gonna say that he's not a good boxer because he has some of the technique. He's a decent fighter,
right?
But most of what he has done is take the social media approach to boxing. That's why I called it the WWE-atization. Right? You can't call it the WWF anymore because that's Save the Panda Bears and there's a whole lawsuit on that. Right. But it's the WWE professional wrestling of boxing. So what he has done an excellent job of is finding people who were good fighters. Somebody like, do you know the name Anderson Silva?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But not a boxer, right? Like no one ever thought that Anderson Silva was a boxer. He's a great UFC. He's a great MMA fighter.
Right.
Right. Same thing with what was the other fight? Nick Diaz, right? Like, yes, the Diaz brothers are boxers, but they're known for MMA. And they're also way older than Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul's 29, something like that.
And that's 30. The point I want to get to. But you're giving me what I need. So the guy, my understanding is that he's worked himself into quite the athlete. He's not a small man, from my understanding. He's a big man. And he's doing what we've always wondered in life, right? Back in the day, it's like, well, if Muhammad Ali was around today, would he be able to beat blah, blah, blah. Back in the day, they would say, okay, Muhammad Ali versus Mike Tyson, when Mike Tyson was the best boxer in the world. Who would win? And no matter which bar you walked into in Boston, people would be yelling about that, right? Oh, Ali with the rope-a-dope, he'd kill him with the rope-a-dope. He'd wear him out and just blah, blah, blah. And he floated around the ring, and Tyson was just this puncher and, this maul of a hand. Okay. People would go back and forth. But it's always, now we're looking at age versus youth. A guy in his 20s up against a guy that's probably close to 60. I'm going to say Mike Tyson's 58, 59. I think he was born in 66, so that would put him 58, I guess. I'm doing some math.
Yep, June 30th, 1966.
Okay. So heading towards his 59th birthday, right? And people have been asking me all day long, who do you think is going to win? It's like, well, look, I'm not much of I don't understand. I have a rare photo of one Mr. Jack Johnson hanging on my wall because the man fought adversity throughout his whole life. And I've always felt like I fought adversity. And I have this incredible photo of Jack Johnson in the ring. You ever want to look up a man that went through it all? Look up Jack Johnson. Was arrested for taking a white woman across state lines. True story.
Some would say set up as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a setup because he was the greatest of all time back in the day.
Is he the one that's from Galveston?
Maybe. Very wealthy man, did very well spoken, just the whole deal. He was a black man in a white man's world back then, and some people didn't take too kindly to that. And lives his life. I'm a big fan of Jack Johnson.
Yeah, that's okay. He is who I was thinking of. He is originally from Galveston, Texas. He died in Franklinton, North Carolina. But he fought his way through the South, basically.
Yeah.
And no one today knows that, right? Granted, he was born in the 1870s, so it's not it's not a huge surprise. If you're a boxing fan, you know.
The photo I have an actual original photo that my great uncle gave to me when I was laying there in the body cast. He was a boxer back in the day. He was the one that got me into sports. I just turned 13 years old by 2 days and ended up in a body cast from a football game. And he brings this photo and he hung it in my bedroom. And I looked at this thing and he goes, "This man fought more adversity than anyone in the world." And he told me stories. He would come in every day, my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, and tell me stories about Jack Johnson. Right. And that's why I know who Jack Johnson is. Right. And at some point, I wrote to Sotheby's to say, "Hey, I have this thing." And they were like, "Can you take photos? Can you take it out of the frame, show us the back of it and the whole thing?" And I did. And they went, "Okay, that's an original. It's a this, it's a that." And I said, "What's it worth?" And they said it would probably hammer at around $2,000 in today's world, which, I'm not selling it. I just wanted to know what it was worth, right? Or if I should be giving this to like a boxing museum or something, right? Just donating it to a museum. But I wanted to know what the worth was. And they said, but, if someone like a Stallone wanted this thing, they would the price could jack up to the $10,000 mark. And I said, "Oh, you mean Sly might want this?" And they said, "No, Frank Stallone."
He said, even better.
Yeah. My favorite of the two Stallones is Frank Stallone. I love that guy. He's wide open. Anyway, I still have it. It's protected. Whenever I leave the house, it goes in the safe, right? So whenever we travel, it goes right into the safe with valuables and that kind of thing. Rightly so. But I look at it every day when I'm home. I would love to see Mike Tyson win this thing tonight. I think the whole country and the whole world is pulling for that because it lets us know. And we know that my audience skews older, right? We know that about my audience. We see who buys vitamin products. We see it 20 different ways. I want people to think that there's hope and to know that there's hope, right? Even if he goes the distance to show that a man getting on to his 60th birthday can actually do this, right? A win would be better, but to go the distance and show that you can do this, right, with a young man in his prime, I think would go a long way. What are you laughing about, Chris?
I think it's either Jake or Logan has a company called Prime that is the new energy drink Gatorade.
Oh, they own that?
Yeah. Which is why I'm pretty sure that's them. I think it's Jake Paul. Oh, that's Logan, not Jake, but the joke is still
there. Okay. Yeah. So the bottom line is I'd love to see Tyson win so that people can understand. I do these consults, and folks, you can sign up for a consult. How do they do it? They go to VinnieTortorich.com. It says talk to Vinnie today, which is a lie. If you sign up today, you can talk to him tomorrow. You know, it takes a day for me to figure, this guy wants to talk to him. And I do these consults all week. And people always think women call and go, I'm going through menopause. It's over with for me. They're depressed. Say, no, it's not over with. It's just beginning. Right? And I believe that about myself, and I believe that for other people. Right? Guys ask me, what do you think the biggest question I get from guys? They're getting younger and younger, 45 and up. What do you think they ask me about first? The biggest question I get.
Something related to testosterone, given our last few conversations.
Yeah, testosterone. Should I be, because the industry, people are inundated. My doctor tells me this guy online, this and that and the whole thing, blah, 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 blah. He's like, listen, I've had low T for years. I'm still pumping on like a madman. I'm still fucking. Right? Why do I need all this? And I even asked my doctor, I said, my testosterone is low. How am I doing all this? And she says, because of your free testosterone, which I don't really understand how it works. It's the ones that, the globules that can, with the protein and the muscle synthesis and the sex hormones, the whole thing. I don't really understand. I can pretend I do and do a thing, but I don't. Right? It's beyond my scope. But the bottom line is, you can do it. And this year, my New Year's resolution coming up for next year is not to just be this aerobic animal anymore, but to actually put on some muscle. Right? Which might mean at some point I'll start doing a shirts off picture every now and again to go, look, 62. I'm doing this natty. Right? If I can do it, you can do it. Right? We saw RFK do it. He took his shirt off and did a bunch of push-ups, and the world went nuts.
Dude, we saw a lot of push-ups this election cycle, which was an interesting thing to me because I don't remember having seen that in the past.
Who else did push-ups?
Vivek.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, and it became to the point where it became some sort of a meme where people would say, let's have a push-up challenge or whatever, and they would just drop down and do 15 or 20, which there's nothing wrong, regardless of your political alignment, there's nothing wrong with doing the occasional push-up. And if I can look half as good as RFK does at his age, then I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Right? Like, dude makes me feel tiny just looking at that guy with his shirt.
And, people were asking me, is he natty? Right? And I got in trouble because I did an Instagram post by saying, no, he's not. He is taking hormones. And why are you saying that about the man? It's like, because he said it. I didn't
literally say it.
I didn't come out and say, hey, I think he's on steroids. He came out and said, in the interest of full disclosure, do I have anything against people taking HRT? Absolutely not. It's not for me, but it might be for you. My thing is to, just like my forefathers, Vince Gironda and Jack LaLanne, those guys took nothing to the grave, right? They took no HRT to the grave. As a matter of fact, you want to see a man, a great bodybuilder, go look at Vince Gironda and realize that guy never took a drug. Just put that name, Gironda starts with a G, in case you're wondering. Put it into your Google machine, and you'll see what I'm talking about. As a matter of fact, just like me, he didn't like the look of steroids on people, right? It's not. I don't find it to be a very attractive look at all, right? And the aforementioned Stallone took hormones along the way. Chris is, if you're watching this on a video, Chris is putting up photos of Vince Gironda. That's the kind of muscle you can put on. By the way, he was quoted as saying he ate somewhere between 12 and 36 eggs a day. That's how. Can you pull up just one big picture of him, Chris, instead of all?
I was going for his diet here.
Oh, okay. Let's see what that one says, because there's a bunch of different things. Can you read it? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, it's telling me there's an ad before I can look at the PDF. So we'll vamp for 30 seconds, and while we're doing that, we'll go back to pictures.
Yeah, we'll look at pictures of this gorgeous man. By the way, he trained a lot of Hollywood. He was one of the original Hollywood trainers, right? He trained people like Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about him a lot back in the day. Vince Gironda knew how to build a body, right? The guy knew his stuff. By the way, he never liked doing squats because he didn't like the big bubble butt on people. He thought he was a big fan of doing hack squats and other different kinds of squats, but he didn't like to squat because he thought a smaller butt with bigger legs was a better look. He and I disagree on that. So did you figure it out, Chris? Did I vamp long enough, or you need more time?
Vince Gironda nutrition plan. I'm assuming this is 2,280 calories. Breakfast, heavy cream, protein powder, 3 whole eggs, 1 scoop of amino acids. That does not sound like something that Vince Gironda would be eating.
No, if anyone's saying that, that's a lie, because amino acids weren't really a thing when Vince Gironda was training.
But even just looking at the eggs, right? It's basically 3 eggs with every meal. So if we take out the stuff that would not have been something, right. Okay, he's having cheese and greens as a snack, eggs and cottage cheese for lunch, eggs and heavy cream for breakfast. Right? Yeah. There's nothing wrong.
Right.
If we can get some steel supplements that we can read. Just see if they have a diet plan. Right. The steak and eggs diet. There you go.
Yeah.
Vinnie, you're over here with NSNG and all these abbreviations and stuff. You could have just called it the meat plan.
Yeah. But that's how bodybuilders. I was good friends with one of the last Mr. Olympias. Can you do me a favor, Chris?
Yeah.
Pull up Mickey Hargitay and find Mickey Hargitay back in the day. I want. Don't pull up the photos first. I want to know when was his last title, and what was his title. He was like the beginning of all of the people coming from a different country. He was from Hungary, who just took the world by storm, and then ended up in Hollywood. Ended up married to Jane Mansfield, and had 3 kids with Jane Mansfield, or 3 or 4. Including Mariska Hargitay, who's still on television today. So I'm going to have Chris look that guy up.
I think we looked at him once before. I think it was 1955 or 1956.
And which title did he win back then?
Let's see. 47 Soviet Union, Mr. Universe in 1955.
Okay. 1955. Now, steroids were invented by then, but not in the bodybuilding world. A Dr. Goldman or Goldsmith, I think it was a Dr. Goldman, who was messing around with steroids back then, taking them from, I want to say, apes or bears or something, or horses or whatever, just natural hormones, and using it in a clinic for people who would die to see if that would do anything. But it wasn't in the bodybuilding world. Now, if you could pull up photos of Mickey Hargitay and put that on the screen, to show what you can do with your body without hormones. Now, understand he was probably in his early mid-20s at this time, so he had a lot of natural testosterone in his system. But I was friends with the man until his death. Used to live in his guest house back when I was in Hollywood.
Better picture of him here.
Is that a picture of him right there? Yeah, there he is. I mean, look at that. That's the kind of muscle you could put on without ever touching steroids. Why would you ever want to do it? Right? And I'm out to prove that at 62, even though I probably can't do that anymore, I can do pretty good. That's what I'm trying to do here. Right? Even with a complete shoulder replacement, even with, two-time cancer crap, that kind of crap, all of it. I want to prove that you can still put on some muscle. Bottom line, without ever touching a drug. So if I can do it, you can do it. Just the way I see it. Chris, you have anything over there? Anything you want to bring up?
I think the question that I have, I know you've already started on this journey. You have a base at your age, right? Yeah. You've been a pretty fit man most of your life. If you are not operating from that base, what would the expectations be? Because we know, and you and I have had this conversation over the last few episodes that we've been on, right? If we're fighting that fight of just trying to get up off the couch, obviously that, we can go back and have that conversation. Well, and we know that there is some muscle memory, if you will, in terms of being able to get back to a place where you were before, because your muscles can rebound to that. But if you're coming from a place where you're moderately fit at your age, would you expect to see the same results that someone like you would see using the same diet and training program? Or do you think you have a little bit of a leg up there because
so let me tell you where my leg ups come from. Because there's more than one. One, I've been doing this my whole life. I know the map. I don't need to put it into Google to figure it out. I know how to get it, right? So that's number one, knowing how to get there. Knowing that it's long, tedious, and boring. So it helps that I'm somewhat of a stoic, right? I'm not looking for instant anything. That's what I'm always trying to explain to people when it comes to just dieting to lose weight, eating the right foods to lose weight. And they'll say, everybody in the office, they bring their cart by and there's all this junk and I'm bored anyway and everyone else is enjoying it. It's like, okay, you got to keep in your mind what your goal is, right? If Sally over there is having the croissant, you don't need it. You don't need the bagel, right? You've cast your bagel chips for life, is what I'm trying to tell you, right? I have that advantage. I have a goal. I know what the rules are. I know what the objectives are. And I just go and I do it, right? So that's a big plus. If you've never done it before or you haven't done it since you finished high school cross country or stopped playing high school basketball or whatever you did, whatever the discipline was, even if you were in the band, that's a discipline, right? It's all a discipline. You got to get your brain back to that. This is what I'm doing. And the big part of that is you can't lose track of that. And that's the problem people have. They lose track of the big picture. Okay? That's the advantage I have. That's the big advantage. You talk about muscle memory. Yeah, I'm never out of shape. I can make an argument when I went through chemo. Yeah, I couldn't do push-ups or whatever. But I'm never out of shape, right? A guy that's doing this year, I'm going to have over 400 hours of aerobics. You can't tell me that guy's out of shape. A guy that goes rucking and doesn't count that as part of his aerobics while he's on the telephone. I'm not a couch potato, right? But I do realize that I'm leaving a lot on the table when I go to the gym because I wanted to. It's like, I'm doing all this other stuff. I don't have to kill myself in the gym. Now I'm moving back a little bit on the aerobics. As a matter of fact, the first thing I did, and it's not even the new year yet, I have one of those assault bikes in here now, and I've used it now 4 times.
Okay, so before we go on, and I hate to interrupt you when you're on a rant.
Go on.
Did you do your least favorite program on the planet, and how was it?
I've done 4, including today with my 4th one. So right now I'm doing 2 of these workouts per week, right? Of high intensity interval training. So I'm starting pretty close to, folks, this won't be your 0, but this is my 0. Okay. I know where my heart rate is, my top heart rate, right? So the way I'm doing it is, okay, the pre-programs that are in the thing, you can literally do 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So an interval is when you go hard for a period and then, almost do nothing for that same amount of time and then go hard again. And the ones pre-programmed in there is anywhere from 1 interval to 8, I think. I think 8 is the top you could do with 10 on, 10 off. Or you could do 20 on, 20 off. That's one of the options. And then you could do 20 on, 10 off. So now you're getting there quicker. So they have a bunch of those in there. I'm not doing those. I've put in a custom one. So on my first one, the first time I did it, I'm doing 5 intervals. Okay. 1 minute on, 1 minute off, 5 times. For a total of 10 minutes. So how did I do that? Well, I got on the thing and I warmed up for 30 minutes. Stayed in zone 2. Now, while I was in zone 2, I know where my upper limits are. I know when I get to lactic threshold. Lactic threshold is when you're busting out of 80% at ceiling of zone 2. So towards the end of that 30-minute warm-up, or after like 20 minutes, I would go to the top of that lactic threshold, touch it, and then come back down into zone 2 and stay there for a minute or 2 and then go up again, get above lactic threshold, maybe a couple of heartbeats higher per minute, and come back down. This is not the interval, folks. This is just me. We call these openers. You're opening your lungs. You're letting your heart know what's coming. And it's very important for me to do a good 30-minute warm-up. I want to be lathered up. I want all of my capillaries. I want everything opened up, right? And then the first time I did 1 minute on, 1 minute off, times 5. And if you go watch people on the internet use these assault bikes or whatever, their heads are going side by side and they're doing all this stuff. You won't see that from me because I'm doing a gradual ramp up. Yeah, I'm going pretty hard at the beginning, but I'm also looking at that time as it's counting down. The first 20 seconds, I'm going hard, but not all out. And then the next 20 seconds, I'm going harder, and I see I'm getting to the top of my thing. And then that final 15 seconds, I'm going all in to where, you feel the acid bath. I can't go any further. The acid bath means that lactic acid is taking over. You feel like you're going to throw up. And then I would take the 1 minute break, just very, very slowly, 5 times. The second time I got on, by the way, did that on a Monday and then went to a Friday. So you see how many days I put in between. Oh, wait, hang on. Did on Monday. I did legs. Tuesday, Wednesday pull. All right, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, it was Friday. Okay, just to be honest. I did it again. 5 reps, but this time 65 seconds on, 65 seconds off. I increased it by 5. And you go, geez, that's not a whole lot. Oh, yes, it is. When you're going all in, 5 seconds is a big buildup. Chris?
That's something most people don't understand. And intervals is the fancy word, right? Let's just call it a sprint because that's the thing that everybody knows, right? And if you think about a sprinter, right? Okay. The 5-second difference. Vinnie, what's the world record for the 100-yard dash?
Well, not they do 100 meters, which is it's in the nine. It's in the nines. I can't. You can look it up, but yeah, it's
so like 9.6 seconds. It looks like.
Yeah, something like that.
So 5 seconds at all out is another half of that.
Right.
Like, imagine Usain Bolt trying to get another quarter of the way around the track, and that's what you're talking.
Well, to that end, he was also a 200 champion. He didn't come out in the 200 the way he came out in the 100. You would see the ramp up in the second half of that race, right? In the second 200, right? Not the first. So you can watch it right there. Just they can't go all out from the beginning. They won't make it. Go on.
9.58 for the 100. He also has the world record for the 200, 19.19, right? That's more than a 5-second difference for the fastest person on the planet.
That we know of, as I always say.
Right. Yeah.
Competition. Because I've always said you could get half these guys from the NFL and put them in a tracksuit on any given day, and they can and teach them some of the form, and they can beat these guys. That's always the funny part of that. You got these guys running 4.35 40s in pads, right? So the third time I did it,
Taekwon is 4.41, just for reference.
That's like ridiculous. I thought he was 4.31.
That might be his. Oh, that's his unofficial. So he may be slightly faster.
Yeah. But. Okay. The third time I did it, 5 reps, 70 seconds. Added another 5 seconds. And then today when I did it, 75 seconds. Right? But I'm putting, Monday and Friday. Okay. What's that doing for me? Well, that's how you build up VO2 max. You can also build up VO2 max just staying in zone 2. But I'm just trying to work other engines, other motors, other modalities that I used to work when I was climbing mountains on a bike. Or living in California, and I would go out for a zone 2 run, but then there would be a long hill, and I would sprint the hill. Only when I was in great shape. Only if I had 15, actually 18 or 20 weeks of a good base of zone 2. Once a week, I would go out in the mountains and just go for it, right? I don't do that anymore. That's why, and by the way, I'm going to start going back and forth on my bike and my rowing machine and I'm doing my rowing machine just to work other parts of my body. So that's what I'm going to do. Why are you only doing it twice a week? Well, some people would tell you once a week, right? I'm doing it twice a week for now. When I start getting up into the 2-3 minute ons and 2-3 minutes off, I might take, like if I do it on a Monday, I might wait until Saturday or Sunday before I do it again, and then wait until midnight, just put longer times in between. Because to do high intensity interval training correctly, you need a big long break in between. Chris, you look like you were going to say something.
So that the question that I was going to ask you've talked about your push-pull legs routine, right? And yes, if you're doing it on your rowing machine, that's going to work upper and lower. If you're doing it on the assault bike, yes, to some extent it will. But how are you working that in? Because something like sprinting, if you're doing sprints correctly, that in and of itself is a hell of a leg workout.
Yeah.
And so are you doing that as far from leg day as possible?
No.
Or are you stacking? Like, what does that look like? Because you talked about basically 3 days in between. So you did the assault bike, I'm assuming push-pull legs in some order in there, and then you did the assault bike.
Just to give you an example, tomorrow is leg day. I did the assault bike today. My legs aren't sore from it or anything, But yeah, I worked my legs pretty good. You got to remember on the assault bike, you're working your upper body also and your core. It's your whole body. It's the same as when you're doing the rowing machine, right? It's repetition. But tomorrow lands on leg day, right? It is what it is. Your body has to adapt. See, that's part of the adaptation, right? You adapt.
The reason that I asked that is one of the things that always comes up about sprints specific, right, is the ability for something like truly balls out lactic acid threshold approaching sprinting, going as hard as you can, does lead to like growth. Not to the same way that doing squats would, but if you look at the people that do it, right, tell Saquon he's got tiny legs and see what happens, right? Like, yes, some of that comes from squats, but it also comes from running as fast as you can. So does that, I know you're talking about the adaptation, but does that make a difference in terms of the overall growth? Because one of your things is adding muscle. So are you reducing the amount of muscle that any of these things would add by doing that? Is there a trade-off, I guess is the question.
There's probably a little bit of a trade-off, but I'm going with the consistency of everything is going to win the day, right? As my late great original strength coach, Joe Bonadonna, used to say, even if you do the wrong thing consistently, you will have results. Right?
They may not be the results that you want, but you will find data, yeah.
Right. But, like you can have a crappy routine as long as you're not doing the wrong, you will have some results, right? So if the goal was to get as big as I could, if that was the goal, then all of it goes away, and I'm just in the weight room like a bodybuilding head, and that's all I'm doing, and I'm eating on point all day long the way a bodybuilder and sleeping half the day. That's not the goal.
32 eggs. Yeah.
The goal is to put some muscle back on my body. Never look, because bodybuilders, people don't realize this. Bodybuilders, whenever they're not on stage, do not look like they look on stage. They get big fat guts and they get everything else and they look smooth. My thing is, I want to be able to take my shirt off at a beach on any given day and go, I can do that right now. Right? It might sound braggadocious. That's not what I mean to do here. I just want to put on more muscle and my waist still being 31, right? Or 30 or whatever it is with no extra fat, right? Like right now I'm ripped in the gut, right? I want that to stay there, but put on more muscle. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think that's something a lot of people need to hear because again, it's not doing everything perfectly all of the time because if you're doing that, that doesn't make any sense. I think the phrase is consistency, right? And if your goal, to your point, was the only thing I'm going to do is put as much muscle on as possible, your stance on TRT is different as well. And I think where people miss out on something like high intensity interval training is they're looking at it through the lens of this is helping me with VO2 max or my cardio. Right. This is helping me with my leg size or leaning out my midsection, right? This is helping me with, by the way, increasing testosterone. Right? If you're getting close to that lactic acid threshold, it triggers the release of all of the hormones that you need. Why? Because your body is screaming, I don't want to die. What's the old Doug McGuff thing from Starting Strength, Vinnie? If you don't feel like you're fighting off a lion and you're about to die, your body doesn't respond to it. Something like that, right? That's how you know you're.
How far was that Mark Rippetoe?
One of the two. Maybe he borrowed it from Rippetoe. But it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if you're looking at this through the lens of this is helping me with cardio, yes. Is it helping me potentially increase the size or the look of my legs? Yes. Is it helping me from a hormone perspective? Yes. Am I going to sleep like a baby afterwards? Yes. Is it the only thing you should be doing? No. It's one of those things that you can add in addition to. Does it take away some of the potential muscle growth? Also, yes. But you get all of the other nice side benefits where you're saying, okay, maybe I didn't have time to sit in zone 2 all day today. So if I do some sprints or I do a little bit of high intensity interval training on the assault bike or I get on the rowing machine and get a full body workout in, I'm getting the VO2 max benefits, I'm getting some strength benefits, and I'm getting the hormone and sleep benefits.
Absolutely. And look, I'm not giving up mountain climbing, so I need to keep my aerobics up for that. All of that takes away from just the overall just putting on muscle, right? This is not Vinnie wants to be a bodybuilder looking thing. Vinnie's trying to get back to the way he looked when he did the conch shell, before he had shoulder surgery, after shoulder surgery, after shoulder surgery, right? I still want to be able to climb mountains without being out of breath. I still want to get in my skull and row for 2 hours without dying, right? All of that, all of the stuff I do is still going to be there. I just need to make sure that sarcopenia is not kicking my ass while I'm doing something else. And I really felt that come on strong over cancer this last time. And you saw how distraught I was trying to do push-ups. You saw it, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like me training.
Hey, look, I remember I got on the pull-up bar right behind me on that rack. I don't talk about this. I did like 3. Maybe 4. I can't remember. It was just, I this is it. I can't bring myself up and put a gun to my head, pull the trigger. I can't get another one up. And now I'm back up to my first set is back up to 15 really good controlled reps on the pull-up bar. So it's coming around. It's slow, but it's coming around.
I think that's another thing. And somehow we always end up in this part of that conversation. But knowing that you could only do 3 right now. Well, not now. Now you're back to whatever it was. But let's just say tomorrow you wake up and you can only do 3.
Right.
Is that necessarily a bad thing? Or do you do what you can do when you can do it and see how to push it a little bit more each time? Because someone who's never done a pull-up can't do 3 pull-ups, right? Even with bands in a lot of cases, you're not going to be able to do 3 full pull-ups, right?
Right. But you see, that was my thing. I was used to being able to do strictly 15, 18 pull-ups, no problem, whatever. And now I'm doing 3, right? It was disconcerting that you can get that weak that fast, and that's what a chemical can do to you, right? I've had people. I'm not going to have a tombstone, but if I had a tombstone, it should say something like, he taught a lot of people how to drive stick, who said they could never learn. That's one of my superpowers. And I've had people tell me there's no way, I've never done 1 pull-up. I'll never be able, mostly women, I'll never be able to do pull-ups. It just won't work. And I'll say, let me coach. These were clients of mine, by the way. Let me coach you through it. I'll have you doing 5 pull-ups inside of 4 weeks. 5. No, there's no way I can't do 1. But I would get them there, right? Just by starting with negatives. Just by starting with, anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. You just have to want to do it. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think what I'm looking for there, because everybody has a bad day, right? You go into the gym, maybe you're getting over being sick. And you and I have talked about this. I don't know if it was on the podcast or if it was just in a conversation that you and I had. Where I was like, man, I was in the gym today and I did like a third of what I can normally do for a bench press. And I know I was sick last week, but I feel fine today. Do you still go through the routine with what you can do? Yeah. Right? Like that's going to change just because you have an off day or a day where you're not at 100% or you're not adding weight to the bar today. Doesn't mean that you don't still have to go do it. Right? It's kind of like eating in that way where you're not always hungry, but you still need to eat something every once in a while or you're going to run into a problem.
Well, Chris, I've been doing a thing my entire life, and I think actually I did an Instagram on this once. I do a thing where, like, some days you just don't have it for the gym. You feel like shit. You know, my back might be hurting. It's leg day, and I don't know if I can go in. Just whatever. And I tell myself, go through the motions. The first thing is, I won't do that workout in my own gym. I'll go to the one in town where there's other people. And when I walk in, I give myself permission on that day. All you have to do is one set. One solid set of anything. If it's leg days, I could do one set of deadlift, one set of squats, one set of leg extensions, leg curls, leg press, whatever, lunges. I tell myself I could go in and pick one exercise and do one set, and then I'm allowing myself to walk out. I've never, ever walked out after one set. If you can do one set, you could do two sets. If you could do two sets, you could do three sets. Before you know it, you're doing another exercise, and you have a whole workout in. Right?
I think that's also great advice, and this is something we've talked about in the VIP group. We've talked about it probably here, just because you and I almost always end up talking about exercise. The people who are thinking about everyone else looking at them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't go to the gym, and I'm thinking of our friend from Philadelphia, who I know you know. I don't like going because I feel like everybody's okay. Go with that same strategy. Go in, do one thing, right? Do one thing, and then if you feel like everybody's looking at you, turn around and move. Why does that work? Well, one, you've already made the commitment to go there and do that thing, and so it feels way worse to you to turn around and go, well, I'm already here, but I don't feel like doing anything else. And two, even if you only did that one thing, Vinny, what would that do? If you just did one set of leg press, that's more than you would have done otherwise. Right? And so you're at least headed in the right direction. It's not always about being perfect. And I know like perfect practice makes perfect performance, right? But we're not in this for perfection. We're in this to get better. And you can get better by not being perfect. Right? I'm not talking about form. I'm talking about sticking to the perfect plan perfectly. If you get into the gym, and some days, Vinny, you won't get the turn on the leg press because you've been at the gym for 4 hours and there's always just somebody else on it. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to walk out. I've had that happen to me. And you go, I'll do some air squats on the way to the car. You have to work with what you have. If you're not feeling it or you're feeling judged or whatever, give yourself that permission to leave. But take the step, at least walk in the door or drive to the gym. And if you can't make it in the door, cool. Next time, make it in the door.
Well, my thing is just walk in. Just got to walk in and do what's that. Right? That's it. Walk out. No one's going to care. No one's going to notice. But I've never failed to do an entire workout when I've done that. Chris, we have VIP coming up. Should we tell people what the VIP is? Because we got to, by the way, we didn't close down the micro thing, have we?
We ended up not doing that because people are still flooding in on that. And so if we want to close that, we can. And I think this is probably a good time. I think we talked about it on the last episode, but this is probably a good time to say, all right, we're just closing the doors because we need to pay attention to people that are there. So if you aren't aware of what the VIP group is, Vinny, what is the NSNG VIP?
It's an accountability. It's kind of what we were talking about on the podcast today. It's an accountability group. So I started noticing years ago, I've been doing these consults, and I still do the consults 5 days a week. It's a personal 1 hour or 30 minutes. People can sign up for 30 minutes or 1 hour. And I noticed that I thought everybody would kind of be a one and done on the consults because I don't ever do a thing where I go, well, I need to talk to you again next week and you have to pay me again. I've never done that. But I noticed that people would come back on a semi-regular basis, the same names over and over and over, right? And sometimes I would, see them once a week for a couple of weeks, and then they would go to every other week, and then they would go to once a month. And then it would become like whenever they felt like they were falling off the wagon, right? It could be 3 months, 6 months.
They just need a
whole year. Right, yeah. They just, So I noticed that people were coming in, and I would have to tell some of them, hey, you keep coming in for an hour, you know you can book a half an hour and pay me half the amount because you're just checking in. And I was like, oh, yeah, I was helping you. I was like, yeah, but I don't want you to waste that kind of money, right? That's what the 30-minute consult was for people who want to keep checking in. And then I thought to myself, a lot of people in today's world cannot afford that kind of money. They have a personal guide, a concierge, if you will. So it's like, how can we do it to where the everyman can afford this? And for $24 a month, it's $24.95. So $25 a month, we do 2 check-ins every month, but you're also in the group where people are checking in every day. So you're part of a group. And these people talk to each other and they check in and they do all this stuff every single day. And I'm there live twice a month. Matter of fact, this month, I might do a 3rd check-in this month, do one right before Thanksgiving, right before I leave. We may, Chris. I'm not saying I'm definitely going to do it. We have to look at the schedule. But we may do one, just a little quickie check-in right before I leave for Thanksgiving to keep people on the straight and narrow. And we do that. I've done 3 in a month before. And, sometimes I'll do a little video. I did a couple of exercise videos when I couldn't do 5 push-ups to hopefully get people started. I want to do more videos, but Chris and I have been very busy with, getting the vitamin company back to where it used to be, and the food company and the coffee company. We're working diligently. So once all that is more settled, I'll be able to go back in and, do the other stuff. Right. But Chris, tell them everything they could give. You also get a free PDF. Tell everyone everything they could get from VIP.
Yeah, so I think the 2 biggest things that people rant and rave about, Vinny, are the community and those monthly check-in calls, or the bi-weekly check-in calls. We try to do it every 2 weeks. Sometimes it sneaks out to 3, and sometimes it's every week. Right? It just depends on how often we can do that, but we always do at least 2 a month. And I think I do really like the idea of doing that pre-Thanksgiving check-in. And one of the other things that we do is we do a monthly challenge inside of the group. And that's actually one of the things that's built into that November challenge. Vinny was thinking about and planning out what you're doing for Tuesday. And you don't have to get granular, but how are you going to deal with the temptations? How are you going to keep up that exercise routine when you're sitting in your mom's basement and you don't have access to your gym? Is there something that you can do? Is it just get outside and go for a walk? Are you going to do a turkey trot? What is it? But think about it in advance. And that's another thing people rant about. So you get access to the community. You get to ask Vinny questions anytime we're on those calls. You get access to the PDF, all of the updated versions of the PDF. And you get access to the video live. So you get access to all of the exercise videos. There's going to be a few stretching ones coming. I know that's something that we've gotten a lot of people asking about. And one of the overlooked things by most people, but one of the most powerful resources in there, Vinny, is not just the live calls, but the call library of those calls. Yeah. And what I have noticed, because I get to spy on in the back end, is the people who are seeing the most progress, the people who were struggling the most and who are now some of the leaders in the group, are the same people that are going back and not just joining us on those live calls, but coming back in and watching the recordings for the parts that they missed, or to say, hey, Vinny talked about this one weird routine. Let me go find where that is and figure out how to do it. And so if you need just a little bit of accountability, if you want to come hang out on a live call, you want to be surrounded by some people who are going through the same things that you are, or have already gone through a lot of those things and are on the other side and can give you some really specific guidance for your situation. I think that's one of the coolest things is pretty much any experience that somebody can have, people in the group have had, whether it's going through menopause, whether it's having low T, whether it's being 400 plus pounds and just not knowing where to start. There's somebody in the group that has had that exact experience, and the openness and willingness to share in that group is one of the coolest things that I've seen. That's it for $25 a month. If you want to come join us and check it out, do that. I think, Vinny, we should say we are going to be closing the enrollment on that on the 22nd.
Okay.
And so right now, if you go to vinnietortorich.com/grow, you can actually get the first month for free. So you don't have to even pay that $25. You can jump in, check it out, come hang out with us. If you get in, before that 22nd, if we do end up doing that free Thanksgiving call, you'll get to even come ask questions. and deal with all the people who are doing check-ins and see how people are progressing. I think that's the other thing that you've built into those monthly calls or the bi-weekly calls that is really interesting, is saying, hey, can you come talk to me next time? And having a queue of people who are letting you know what their journey is, and having the entire group get to watch people make change. And the question we always get is, how do I get in? How do I get to be able to ask a question? Well, if you're in the VIP group, literally all you have to do is tell me that you have a question, and we'll find a space.
Yeah, just write in.
And if it's a one-off, then it's a one-off. And the next time, if you have another question, you can ask it. If it's something Vinnie thinks needs a check-in, or you think you need that additional accountability, then we just say, hey, make sure you're here in 2 weeks, and you can come back on, share your update, share your challenge, share your weird esoteric question about your blood glucose monitor, or whatever it is, right? The weird experience that you had this week when you ate a blueberry, whatever those things are, someone has had that experience, and in a lot of cases, you can get walked through it right there on the line call.
Yeah. So all of that, folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner. It puts coal on the fire, gets my train down the track. Trish, we mentioned Ohio early in the show, and I don't have one Ohio song. I have two. So before I even sign off here, let's see if this one comes up. Everyone's going to know this one. This one. So, folks, on behalf of Chris Shaffer, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living, and let's do it with the Pretenders.